If you are one of those people who constantly feel your inner peace being drained by others, people who leave you feeling hollow and exhausted without you being able to explain exactly why, and because of this, you have been called overly sensitive, labeled as antisocial, isolated, dramatic, emotionally unstable, or even questioned whether there was something fundamentally wrong with you, whether you were broken in some essential way that could not be fixed, then this video is exactly for you. Few people truly understand the silent weight that exists in losing your peace to invisible thieves, to people who take from you without ever asking permission, who leave you hollow, without ever acknowledging what they have extracted from your soul, from your very life force. But you feel it deeply, and you have felt it for a very long time, perhaps your entire conscious life, perhaps since childhood. I once met someone who lived exactly like this, who carried this burden every single day of her existence. She told me with tears streaming down her face, with a vulnerability that broke my heart completely, that she could never explain to anyone why certain people left her completely exhausted, without doing anything overtly harmful, without saying anything cruel, without acting in any way that she could point to and say, this right here is what hurt me, this is the evidence. She said the world thought she was being dramatic, making things up, inventing problems where none existed, creating conflict out of thin air. But the truth, the reality she lived with every moment, was that her soul was being quietly robbed every single day, stolen from in ways that left no visible marks but created internal devastation nonetheless, destroying her from the inside. From that moment forward, I understood what Walt Whitman meant when he spoke of souls that perceive too much, souls that carry the unbearable burden of feeling everything that others cannot see, souls that function as receivers for frequencies most people do not even know exist in the universe. Today, I am going to reveal Walt Whitman's profound spiritual vision of why losing your inner peace to certain people is not weakness or oversensitivity or mental instability or any kind of personal failing, but rather a rare and precious spiritual perception, an extraordinary ability to sense what is real beneath the surface of social performances and masks, and how this deep understanding can transform the entire way you see your own soul and finally learn to protect what is most sacred within you from those who would drain it completely dry. Never has it been more important than right now to understand why so many awakened souls, so many sensitive people, are recognizing these silent thieves of peace walking among us in every area of life. The world has changed dramatically in ways most people cannot see or comprehend, and Whitman already knew this would happen centuries ago. He understood with perfect clarity that there are people who, without malice or conscious intention, without deliberate cruelty, drain the light from others simply by existing in their unresolved state, by moving through the world carrying unhealed wounds that they scatter like poisoned seeds everywhere they go, infecting every interaction, every relationship, every space they enter. He called them the unawakened ones, those who move through life, scattering their inner chaos, like seeds carried on the wind, and the sensitive soul becomes the fertile soil where this chaos takes root and grows into anxiety, exhaustion, confusion, doubt, and a profound sense of being drained of everything vital. Whitman saw this dynamic not as a curse upon the sensitive person, but as a revelation of their spiritual depth, as proof of their heightened awareness, as evidence of their soul's extraordinary capacity to perceive truth beneath illusion. To lose peace in the presence of certain people means you are attuned to frequencies that most cannot detect, cannot feel, cannot even imagine exist. It means your soul functions as a receiver of energies, a translator of unseen vibrations, a witness to the spiritual reality beneath the surface of ordinary interactions and small talk. This is not a flaw in your design or construction. This is your design working exactly as it should, performing precisely the function it was created to perform. The pain comes not from the perception itself, not from your ability to feel and sense, but from living in a world that denies what you perceive, that tells you your sensitivity is the problem, rather than recognizing that your sensitivity reveals the problem others cannot see. Let me tell you about a traveler Whitman once described in his Contemplations, a solitary figure who walked through crowded streets feeling more profoundly alone than in any wilderness, more isolated in the company of others than in complete solitude. This traveler noticed with growing confusion and distress that certain companions left them feeling hollow after conversations, as if something vital and irreplaceable had been extracted from their being during the exchange, as if they had given something precious they could not name and received absolutely nothing in return. Others would walk beside them on ordinary days, and the traveler would feel suddenly heavy, inexplicably burdened by weights that were not their own, carrying sorrows and angers and fears that belonged to someone else, but had somehow been transferred into their body like a transfusion. Still others would speak words of kindness and affection, while the traveler's soul recoiled instinctively, sensing a dishonesty that the words themselves did not reveal, detecting a manipulation that operated beneath the level of language and conscious communication. Whitman understood completely that this traveler was not imagining these experiences, was not being paranoid or judgmental or unkind or mentally unstable. The traveler was simply awake in a world of sleepers, and the sleep of others was contagious in a way most people do not understand, pulling at the awakened one like gravity pulls at light, like darkness seeks to extinguish flame, like cold seeks to drain heat from warm bodies. This is the fundamental spiritual reality of peace thieves that Whitman wanted us to understand deeply. They are not villains in the traditional sense, not consciously cruel or deliberately harmful or intentionally destructive. They are unintegrated souls moving through the world, unconsciously seeking in others what they have not found in themselves, looking externally for the wholeness they refuse to cultivate internally through their own inner work. And when they encounter someone like you, someone whose inner world is rich and carefully cultivated over years, whose peace has been hard-won through countless hours of inner work and spiritual practice, they instinctively draw from that richness like a plant draws water from soil. Because their own inner landscape is barren and desolate, their own well is completely dry, their own soul is a desert that produces nothing of value. Whitman identified 6 distinct archetypal forms these peace thieves take in the world, 6 recurring patterns of souls who drain rather than nourish, who take rather than exchange, who leave you diminished rather than expanded, who create deficit rather than abundance in every interaction. Understanding these 6 types is not about judgment or condemnation or placing yourself morally above others in some hierarchy. It is about recognition and clarity. It is about finally naming what you have always felt but could never articulate clearly, giving precise language to experiences that our culture has no adequate vocabulary for, making visible what has always been invisible and unspoken. The first type Whitman recognized with piercing clarity was the emotional vampire, the person who feeds parasitically on your care and attention and never offers genuine nourishment in return, never gives back what they take from you. This is the friend who always has a crisis, always needs immediate support, always requires your instant presence and attention regardless of what is happening in your own life, but mysteriously disappears or becomes completely unavailable when you need the same kind of support they constantly demand from you. They speak of their suffering with such raw intensity and dramatic urgency that you cannot help but absorb it completely, taking their pain into your own body as if it were your personal responsibility to carry and process what they refuse to deal with themselves. Whitman saw with perfect understanding that these souls had become genuinely addicted to their own suffering over time, that they had built their entire identity and sense of self-worth around their wounds and their victim status, and they unconsciously but powerfully resisted actual healing, because healing would mean losing the attention and sympathy and special treatment their pain provides. losing the one thing that makes them feel seen and important and special. When you interact with them, you are not engaging in mutual exchange or reciprocal relationship or healthy connection. You are being depleted systematically and completely, and they walk away feeling temporarily lighter and better while you carry what they have transferred to you, holding their darkness and their pain so they do not have to feel it themselves. The second type Whitman identified is the silent critic, the person whose disapproval and harsh judgment you feel like a cold wind cutting through you even when they say absolutely nothing out loud. They do not need to speak their criticisms directly because their energy communicates everything with perfect clarity and devastating precision. You feel yourself automatically shrinking in their presence, second-guessing your words before you speak them, monitoring your facial expressions constantly, performing a carefully controlled version of yourself that you hope will be acceptable to their impossibly high and unspoken standards that no one could ever meet. Whitman understood that these souls are fundamentally at war with themselves deep inside, locked in brutal internal combat with their own nature, and they project their self-rejection onto everyone around them like a mirror reflects light in all directions. They cannot accept their own nature, their own humanity, their own inevitable imperfection, so they cannot possibly accept yours or anyone else's. Being near them is like standing in a room where the temperature keeps dropping degree by degree, but no one acknowledges the cold. No one admits that something is profoundly wrong with the atmosphere. Your peace dissolves gradually because you are constantly braced against their invisible judgment, constantly defending yourself against accusations that are never spoken aloud, but always powerfully felt in every moment of interaction. The third type Whitman called the energy borrower with great precision, the person who seems absolutely wonderful and delightful in the moment, but leaves you feeling strangely and inexplicably exhausted afterward, drained in ways you cannot articulate or justify to anyone else. They are not overtly demanding or obviously needy in their presentation. They may even be entertaining, charming, funny, engaging, drawing you in with their apparent vitality and charisma. But something essential about the interaction leaves you depleted in a way you cannot quite name, cannot quite put your finger on, cannot explain to anyone else without sounding completely crazy or overly sensitive. Whitman recognized with laser precision that these souls have not learned to generate their own vitality from within themselves, have not developed the capacity to sustain themselves energetically through their own inner resources, so they unconsciously and automatically siphon energy from others, like vampires siphon blood from the living. They are like plants that have somehow forgotten how to photosynthesize and create their own energy, depending entirely on the energy of those around them to feel alive, to feel animated, to feel like functioning human beings moving through the world. When you spend time with them, you are not engaging in mutual exchange or balanced relationship or equal partnership. You are being used as a battery, a power source, a generator, and they are taking your charge to power their own system, leaving you running on empty with nothing left for yourself. Let me ask you something deeply personal about losing your inner peace to these invisible thieves, something I want you to consider with complete honesty and self-reflection. When was the very first time you noticed that certain people left you feeling profoundly drained and exhausted, not because of what they actually did or said to you, but simply because of who they fundamentally are, because of the energy they carry with them everywhere, because of what they represent in the world? Many people have never been able to admit openly what they feel about these peace-robbing presences in their lives, because almost no one in their immediate environment truly understands this experience or validates it as real. But here, in this space we are creating together, you are truly comprehended without judgment or dismissal, or being told you are making things up. Your comment might be exactly what another person desperately needs to read to finally realize there is absolutely nothing wrong with them, that they are not crazy or broken or defective. If you want, copy and paste this in the comments. I feel this because my soul perceives too much. Breathe deeply now. Feel for a moment what your soul wants to respond about this topic. If you feel your soul wants to share something, the comments are your completely safe space where you will be understood. But if you prefer to keep this in silence and privacy, that is completely fine too. That is actually the purest form of self-respect and self-protection. The fourth type is the chaos spreader, the person whose entire life exists in constant disorder and turbulence. And they, unconsciously but inevitably, pull everyone around them into that disorder like a whirlpool pulls swimmers under the surface. They create drama not because they are intentionally malicious or trying to harm others, but because they are genuinely addicted to intensity, to crisis, to emergency, to constant stimulation. Peace feels like death to them because they have never learned to find aliveness in stillness, have never discovered that real depth exists in quiet contemplation. They confuse drama with depth, chaos with authenticity, constant crisis with being fully alive and engaged with existence. When you are in their proximity for any length of time, your carefully cultivated inner stillness is systematically disrupted by their turbulence and chaos. They ask earnestly for your advice, but never actually take it or implement it. They create the identical problems repeatedly in different clothing and contexts. They resist every solution you offer because the problem itself is what they actually want deep down, what they unconsciously need, what gives their life meaning and structure. Whitman saw clearly that these souls fear their own inner emptiness so profoundly that they compulsively fill their lives with noise and drama and chaos to avoid ever having to face the silence within, to avoid encountering who they actually are beneath all the performance and distraction. Being close to them means you can never truly rest or relax. Your nervous system is always activated, always on high alert, always waiting anxiously for the next emergency, the next drama, the next urgent demand for your immediate attention and energy and resources. The fifth type Whitman identified with great precision was the unintentional manipulator, the person who controls through perceived weakness rather than obvious strength or direct demands. They make you feel completely responsible for their feelings, their choices, their well-being, their entire emotional state and life situation. They do not demand your help directly or obviously or in ways you could refuse without guilt. Instead, they create elaborate situations where refusing to help feels absolutely cruel and heartless, where saying no makes you feel like a monster or a terrible person. They play the victim role so convincingly that you cannot decline their requests without feeling like a villain. Whitman understood with deep compassion that these souls had learned early in life that helplessness was actually power, that appearing weak was the most effective way to control others, to get needs met, to manipulate without appearing to manipulate. They do not genuinely want to be empowered or independent because empowerment would mean losing their primary and most effective tool for getting needs met and controlling others. When you interact with them, you are not actually helping someone who sincerely wants to grow and change and evolve. You are enabling someone who has consciously or unconsciously chosen dependence as a lifestyle, as an identity, as a fundamental strategy for moving through the world. And your peace erodes steadily because you can never do enough, give enough, sacrifice enough, or be enough to satisfy their bottomless need and constant demands. The sixth and perhaps most insidious type is the subtle invalidator, the person who undermines your reality so gently and gradually that you begin to doubt your own perceptions, your own feelings, your own direct experiences of life. They do not argue with you directly or confront you openly about disagreements. They simply suggest with apparent concern that you are too sensitive, that you are overreacting to small things, that you are imagining problems that do not actually exist in objective reality. When you express a boundary clearly and firmly, they make you feel unreasonable for having it at all. When you name your authentic experience honestly, they offer alternative explanations that make you question what you felt, what you know, what you directly experienced. Whitman saw that these souls are terrified of genuine emotional honesty because it would require them to face their own inner truth, their own unprocessed pain, their own unhealed wounds that they have buried. They have built elaborate defensive structures against genuine feeling over many years, and anyone who feels authentically threatens the entire psychological structure they have painstakingly created over decades. Being around them means you slowly but surely lose trust in your own inner knowing and direct perception. Your peace dissolves because you are constantly second-guessing yourself, wondering if maybe you really are too much, too sensitive, too demanding, too difficult, too complicated, too broken to be loved. The profound spiritual challenge of encountering these 6 archetypal types in your daily life is that they do not announce themselves as peace thieves or energy vampires. They do not wear signs or carry warnings about their true nature. They often appear as friends, family members, colleagues, romantic partners, even mentors or spiritual guides. They may genuinely care for you in their own limited and conditional way within the constraints of what they are capable of giving. But caring is fundamentally not the same as being safe for your soul or healthy for your spirit. Whitman taught with great wisdom that you can love someone deeply and still recognize that their presence is harmful to your spiritual well-being and inner peace. You can wish them well sincerely and still consciously choose distance and separation. You can have compassion for their struggle and their pain and still fiercely protect your own peace as sacred and non-negotiable. The transformation begins precisely when you stop trying to fix them, or change them, or heal them. Stop hoping they will magically transform. Stop believing that if you just love them enough, or help them enough, or understand them enough, or sacrifice enough of yourself, they will suddenly become safe for your soul, will suddenly stop draining you of your vital energy. Whitman knew deeply that each person has their own unique timing for spiritual awakening, and you absolutely cannot awaken someone who has chosen either consciously or unconsciously to remain asleep to their own nature. Your responsibility is not to save them from themselves or rescue them from their choices. Your responsibility is to honor the sacred space within yourself, to protect the peace you have cultivated through years of difficult inner work and spiritual practice, to refuse to let anyone make a home in your inner temple without your explicit conscious consent and agreement. This means developing what Whitman called divine discernment, the hard-won ability to feel accurately into another person's energy and recognize immediately whether they nourish or deplete you, whether they honor or diminish you, whether they meet you in genuine exchange or simply take what they need and disappear when you need them. Divine discernment is not judgment or condemnation or superiority. It is clarity and truth. It is seeing things exactly as they are rather than as you desperately wish they would be. It is accepting that some people are simply not capable of the kind of relationship your soul legitimately requires, and that is not a failure on your part or theirs. It is simply a mismatch of readiness, of consciousness, of capacity, of spiritual development and maturity. The practical wisdom Whitman offers for protecting your peace is beautifully simple, but requires tremendous courage to implement. First, learn to trust what you feel in someone's presence more than what they say, or what they promise, or what they claim about themselves. Your body knows before your conscious mind does. If you feel contracted, guarded, exhausted, anxious, or diminished around someone, that is crucial information from your soul. Do not talk yourself out of it. Do not rationalize it away with logic. Do not let anyone convince you that your feelings are invalid or wrong or imaginary. Second, recognize clearly that you do not owe anyone unrestricted access to your inner world or your energy. Your peace is not a public resource to be distributed to whoever asks for it or demands it from you. You are allowed to be highly selective about who you allow into your intimate space. You are allowed to say no without explanation or justification. You are allowed to choose distance from anyone who leaves you feeling diminished, regardless of how that choice appears to others or what others think about your decisions. Third, understand clearly that people who drain your peace will almost always react strongly and negatively when you finally begin to protect it through healthy boundaries. They may accuse you of being cold, distant, selfish, changed, not yourself anymore. They may claim you are not the person they knew, that you have become someone else entirely, someone they do not recognize. Whitman saw this reactive behavior as absolute confirmation that you are doing exactly the right thing for yourself and your well-being. The people who benefited from your lack of boundaries will always be upset when you finally establish them firmly. Their discomfort is not your responsibility to manage or fix. Your peace is your primary responsibility. Fourth, actively cultivate relationships with people who give as much as they receive, who genuinely honor your boundaries without resentment, who meet you in authentic exchange and reciprocity. These people absolutely exist, but you will not find them while you are completely exhausted from maintaining relationships with peace thieves. You must create space in your life for nourishing connections by consciously releasing draining ones. Fifth, spend significant time in solitude regularly, deliberately recharging your inner well, reconnecting with the stillness that is your natural state. Whitman believed deeply that solitude was not isolation or loneliness, but communion with your deepest self, and that this communion was absolutely essential for maintaining your spiritual vitality in a world that constantly tries to pull you out of your center and into chaos. The traps to avoid on this path are seductive and subtle. The first trap is believing that setting boundaries makes you unloving or unkind or selfish. Whitman taught that true love includes self-love, and self-love requires fierce protection of your sacred inner space. You can be compassionate towards someone's struggle without sacrificing your peace to it. The second trap is thinking you can change these people through enough patience or understanding or unconditional love. You cannot. They must choose their own evolution, and most will not choose it until the pain of staying the same exceeds the fear of change. Your role is not to be their catalyst for change. Your role is to live your own awakening fully and completely. The third trap is feeling guilty for recognizing these patterns in people you care about deeply. Seeing clearly is not betrayal of them. It is honoring reality as it exists. Whitman knew that spiritual growth often requires us to outgrow relationships that once fit, but no longer serve our evolution. And this outgrowing is natural, necessary, even sacred in many cases. The fourth trap is waiting for permission from others to protect your peace and establish boundaries. No one will give you that permission because those who drain you want access to continue, and those who do not drain you already respect your boundaries naturally without being asked. You must give yourself permission, and you must do it without apology or lengthy explanation. The synthesis of Whitman's vision is this: your inner peace is the foundation of your entire spiritual life, and protecting it is not selfish but absolutely essential to your well-being. The 6 types of peace thieves exist not to punish you, but to teach you discernment, to strengthen your ability to recognize what is truly good for your soul and what merely appears good on the surface. Every time you choose your peace over someone else's comfort or approval, you are choosing your spiritual evolution. Every time you recognize a peace thief and create healthy distance, you are honoring the sacred within yourself. Every time you refuse to let someone else's chaos and drama become your own burden, you are practicing the highest form of self-love. Whitman understood that the sensitive soul lives in a world designed for those who feel less, and this creates an inherent challenge that cannot be avoided. But the challenge is not to become less sensitive or to numb yourself. The challenge is to become more skilled at protecting your sensitivity, more discerning about who gets access to your depth, more committed to preserving the inner stillness that is your greatest gift and strength. The people who rob your peace are everywhere you look, but so is the peace itself, waiting patiently within you, indestructible and eternal, requiring only that you stop feeding it to those who cannot value it or honor it. This is not about becoming hard or closed or distrustful of everyone. This is about becoming wise and discerning, about learning to offer your presence generously to those who honor it, and withhold it lovingly from those who would waste it or exploit it. Whitman's final teaching on this is perhaps his most profound and beautiful. He said that the soul knows its own kind, that you will recognize those who truly see you, who genuinely meet you where you are, who authentically exchange with you rather than extract from you selfishly. When you encounter these rare souls, you will feel expanded rather than contracted, energized rather than depleted, more yourself rather than less. These are your true companions in this life, and they are worth waiting for, worth making space for, worth protecting your peace to find eventually. Until you find them, be your own best companion. Sit with yourself in the silence regularly. Learn to feel so full in your own presence that the absence of others does not create emptiness, but spaciousness and freedom. Become so intimate with your own inner peace that you immediately recognize when someone threatens it or tries to steal it. This is the journey Whitman invites you to undertake, the journey from unconscious depletion to conscious preservation, from people-pleasing to soul-honoring, from self-abandonment to self-devotion and self-respect. If something in this reflection about losing your inner peace to these silent thieves touched that quiet space within you, that space few people understand or validate, then this is the right place to remain and grow. I invite you with deep respect, not as someone who teaches from above, but as someone who walks beside you on this path. By subscribing, you do not just receive videos or content. You receive a sacred space where recognizing peace thieves is not seen as being judgmental, but as essential spiritual wisdom and discernment. I know that living with this level of perception in a noisy, chaotic world can be profoundly exhausting every single day. Here, you do not need to explain yourself or justify your sensitivity. By subscribing, you join a circle of people who feel the world with rare depth and who find genuine meaning in reflections like this one. I have studied Whitman for many years, not to know more intellectually, but to feel better and live with more wisdom. And I share this with you because I am also learning and growing every day. What you discovered here is just the beginning of understanding yourself. If you wish to continue exploring the spiritual truth behind protecting your inner peace and honoring your sensitivity, subscribe and let us walk this path together with mutual support. If this video spoke directly to your soul in ways you have been waiting to hear, write in the comments, "My soul recognizes the thieves of peace."